In life, it is said that having two is always better than having one. Well, when it comes to a former All-Pro cornerback, he's saying that the Detroit Lions have got a fearsome twosome developing on their team. And we're going to talk about it in this episode, folks, so don't you dare go anywhere.
What are we? What makes us what we are? And what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, for today's episode, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about how a former All-Pro cornerback just yesterday made an announcement, made a, I guess you could call it a prediction in a sense of the word, that the Detroit Lions have a fearsome twosome, have a fearsome tandem developing, and that he expects that it's going to be a really, really damn good tandem, a top tandem in his opinion. Now, who exactly am I referring to here? The former All-Pro cornerback I'm referring to here, if y'all haven't figured it out by now, at least from the thumbnail image, is Aqib Talib. Now, for us Detroit Lions fans, we actually have a pretty good liking of Aqib Talib because after he got done playing football as a cornerback, he had a short, brief career as a Fox color analyst for the games. And a lot of our games as Detroit Lions, they get put on Fox and we watch them. So we actually had, I think, a couple of games where he was actually the analyst for our games, and a lot of us liked his announcing. We liked what he had to say. And so Aqib Talib is somebody that, one, we already know something about him, not only from his playing days, but also from his broadcasting days. But at the same time, we also know that Aqib Talib knows what the hell he's talking about, because for the brief time that Aqib Talib actually was on television as a color analyst, he got a little bit of a, I wouldn't say it was kind of like a Tony Romo vibe, but for the defensive side of things, he kind of did. It was like, hey, this guy really knows what the hell he's talking about when it comes to the defense. He really knows what he's talking about, especially when it comes to cornerbacks. So when I heard this from yesterday, I was really, really excited. And the funny thing about it is I checked all the main Lions channels that are on YouTube, and nobody talked about this yesterday, which I was like, okay, I understand it. We are in the middle of training camp, so training camp news kind of takes priority here. But I was just like, dude, this is pretty nice, awesome news. This is like exciting news. And I was like, for us Lions fans, one of the biggest questions, one of the biggest areas that, we're still trying to figure out what we have is at the cornerback room. Obviously, we're hearing from Coach Dan Campbell that, the rookies are making development. They're looking feisty. They're looking competitive in practice. It doesn't look like it's too big for them. But again, it's one of those things where it's like until rubber meets the road, until we actually get to see what is going to happen in game time, you still don't quite know exactly what you have. You've got a decent idea in practice, but until you actually see how these guys work together in a game situation, you don't really know what you've got. Well, according to Aqib Talib, he thinks he already knows what the Detroit Lions have at cornerback, and he's saying that the Lions he's saying that in his opinion, the Lions will have a top cornerback tandem this season. So what exactly did Aqib Talib say? Aqib Talib, he got on one of the NFL shows, I don't know which one it was, but he got on the show and he started talking about the Detroit Lions cornerbacks. And he specifically started talking about cornerback Carlton Davis III and Terrion Arnold. And this is exactly what he said. There were two different parts to this, so we're going to go over both of them really quickly. The first thing that he said was, I can't wait to watch the Lions and Terrion Arnold, mainly because of Carlton Davis III, or Jr. He has an NFL vet on the other side of him, and that's going to be a top tandem. I'm calling it right now. They'll be a top tandem in the league as far as cornerbacks. So let's just keep that in perspective there, okay? Aqib Talib, This guy's a former All-Pro. This guy went to several Pro Bowls in his career. He won a Super Bowl. If I recall correctly, he's actually been to a couple of Super Bowls because he played for the Patriots. He also played for the Broncos. This guy clearly knows what it means to play cornerback. This guy was, let's call it for what it is. When this guy played, he was one of the best cornerbacks in the league when he played. So it's like, okay. And this was at a time where you had guys like Richard Sherman and a whole bunch of other dudes. So Aqib Talib knows what the hell he's talking about when it comes to cornerback play. He absolutely knows what he's talking about. Well, let's understand where exactly Aqib Talib is coming from in this perspective here. He is saying that in his perspective that Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold are going to be a top cornerback tandem this year. That's pretty damn exciting news if you ask me, because it's like, hey, that is something that we Lions fans are desperately wanting to see this year for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, let's just call it for what it is. That cornerback room has got to step up if we want to have a shot to make a Super Bowl and to win a Super Bowl this year. Probably the biggest thing that sunk our season last year was that we had horrible, horrendous, terrible cornerback play. There's a reason why Jerry Jacobs is no longer here. There's a reason why, other than the fact that, he got in trouble with the law, that freaking Cameron Sutton is not here. Both of them did not do a very good job when it came to covering wide receivers. We were horrible in that department last year. And let's call it also for what it is. Our offense kind of tagged our defense along throughout the majority of the playoffs because our offense had to keep scoring more points because our defense did not exactly do the greatest job at points in stopping opposing offenses. But I digress. The point of the matter is that if we want to have a shot to win the Super Bowl this year, that passing defensive secondary has got to step up. So that's first and foremost what needs to happen here is like, hey, based upon what happened last year, we need it to step up because we do not want to have a repeat of what happened last year where we're getting shredded by quarterbacks, especially guys that we know shouldn't be shredding us, like, Nick Mullins and the Vikings did twice. But at the same time, if we want to have a shot to win the Super Bowl, our cornerbacks have to step up. They have to play at a much better level than what we've been accustomed to seeing them play over the last couple of years. Now, I fully expect that to at least a certain degree, that should be the case. Because let's understand something here. You take a look at Brad Holmes' track record. Ever since that man has stepped in as the GM of the Detroit Lions, anytime he's drafted a player that's in a high-round draft pick for the most part, it has usually resulted in almost instantaneous return on investment. Think about it. When we drafted Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs last year in the first round, instantaneous return on investment. When we drafted Penei Sewell, that was an instantaneous return on investment. When we drafted Aiden Hutchinson, instantaneous return on investment. Every single time we have drafted top draft talent by Brad Holmes, whether it's in the first or second round for the most part, we almost always get some sort of return on investment right away. Well, the reason I'm saying that is take a look what Brad Holmes did this previous year. He drafted Terrion Arnold, who was widely considered the best cornerback in the draft last year when we went to the draft, and he also got Enos Rakestraw. So it's like, okay, we spent 2 high-quality draft picks on cornerbacks. Terrion Arnold has looked good so far in camp. So has Enos Rakestraw. Okay, so the cornerbacks that we drafted in the draft, they are looking good. And so far, Carlton Davis, haven't heard anything bad about him. And again, it kind of goes without saying, no news is kind of good news when it comes to this. If you're not hearing anything bad about the player, that means they're doing their job. Now, would you like to hear positive news and stuff like that? Absolutely you would. But it's like, hey, I don't hear anybody saying that Carlton Davis is getting burned in practice. I don't hear anybody saying that Carlton Davis is looking like he's out of sorts. In fact, I'm not hearing anything about Carlton Davis. And in that sense, that's good news. So it's like, okay, our cornerbacks seem like, even up against Jared Goff, Sam Laporta, J-Mo, and freaking Amon-Ra St. Brown, that they're holding their own. It doesn't seem like they're just getting absolutely massacred on the practice field, which is good news. But like I said, Aqib Talib had a little bit more to talk about this, and he specifically wanted to talk about the top draft pick that the Lions had this last year in freaking Terrion Arnold. Now, I have this on my phone, so I'm just adjusting my phone right here, but Next thing that Aqib Talib said was this. He was, again, talking about Terrion Arnold. He then said, Terrion Arnold was a ball hawk last year. I think he had 5 or 6 interceptions in college. If you get interceptions in college, you get interceptions in the league. It always translates. Carlton Davis, I've always been a fan. So again, what you've got there is you've got pretty much Aqib Talib is saying this. Listen, you take a look at what Terrion Arnold did last year in college. And I've talked about Terrion Arnold when he was in college. Terrion Arnold last year, when he played for Alabama, he had some of the best interceptions as far as cornerbacks were concerned. He was able to get, like Aqib Talib said, I think it was 5 interceptions last year. And according to Talib, man, that was a little bit of a tongue twister there. If you're able to get interceptions in college, especially for a top program from the SEC like Alabama, that is going to translate into the NFL. And there's a reason why it's going to translate. Let's understand this. Aqib Talib knows what he's talking about first and foremost. Okay, that's a given. But Alabama, again, I've said this before in the past. I don't like Alabama. I have never liked Alabama. But I respect the hell out of their program because of what Nick Saban did with that program while he was there. In the SEC, you are dealing with some of the best player talent that is going to come out of the college ranks into the NFL. It happens every single damn year. And it especially is true when it comes to the quarterbacks that are coming out of it. Well, think about it. If the quarterbacks are top-notch coming out of that, out of that division or that conference that's in the freaking college ranks, the same is going to have to be true for the cornerbacks for the most part because, hey, the cornerbacks that have to go up against said quarterbacks are going to have to be able to play on their level. So what Aqib Talib is saying, it makes absolute sense. And if Arnold, being such a top cornerback from the freaking Alabama program, he was able to hold his own and not only hold his own but do very well, it should translate very well to the NFL ranks. And it's going to translate even better, like Aqib Talib is saying, with the fact that Carlton Davis is in camp. It would be one thing if Terrion Arnold was coming into this camp and he didn't have a strong veteran presence like Carlton Davis. But Carlton Davis has been around for quite a bit. Carlton Davis actually has had a Super Bowl experience that he won with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it's like, hey, Carlton Davis was a key integral piece of that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that absolutely shut the hell out of freaking, the Kansas City Chiefs and freaking, Patrick Mahomes. You go back to that Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense absolutely destroyed the freaking Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, for crying out loud, go back to freaking Patrick Mahomes' stat line in that Super Bowl. He was horrible. And that's not a word that you use quite often with Patrick Mahomes, horrible. But take a look at his stat line. I think he had like a 70 passer rating. He had 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. That's a horrible outing. And for Patrick Mahomes, that's not common. So you have to understand something here. I know when we made the trade for Carlton Davis this offseason, there were some people that were, how should I put this, less than enthused about it. But it's like, hey, Carlton Davis is a pretty solid cornerback. He knows what it's like to play at a championship level in the NFL. He is obviously taking under his wing Terrion Arnold. All that's going to do is make a benefit for Terrion Arnold to grow faster and develop even better than what he would have if there was no veteran presence. So what Aqib Talib is saying here, it absolutely makes sense. It absolutely has merit. And in my honest opinion, the only thing that's remaining here is how well can the coaches that the Lions have actually develop those young cornerbacks, particularly Terrion Arnold, but also Enos Rakestraw, so that way they can play at a top level once the regular season starts. Because again, I've said this in the past. You take a look at the first 4 or 5 games that the Lions have this season, the Lions are going up against some really, really damn good quarterbacks and some good wide receivers. Very first game, we got to play against Matthew Stafford. Okay, we obviously know that they got Puka Nacua. They've obviously got Cooper Kupp. Hey, we also know we got the Cowboys in like week 5. Okay, that's CeeDee Lamb and that's Dak Prescott right there. The cornerbacks are going to have to step up and they're going to have to pretty much earn their stripes, so to speak, very, very early. And if what Aqib Talib is saying is true, I am hoping, praying, and I definitely want to see how these guys, especially Carlton Davis and now Terry and Arnold, are able to play on the field, because it's looking like those are going to be our two top outside cornerbacks against top-end wide receivers and top-end, quarterbacks opposite of them. But if Talib is saying that we're going to have a top tandem, I believe that we're going to have a top tandem. Now, some people are going to say, is that going to be instantaneous? Probably not. It's probably going to take a couple of games before it starts gelling, because again, there's no way I am expecting that the very first game these guys are going to come out and be a shutdown defense in the secondary. It might take a couple of games for it to pick up. And let's keep this in perspective. The fact that the Lions have an early bye week this year, while in normal circumstances, that would be a bad thing, because it's like, hey, now you don't have a bye week again. You have to deal with injuries. That's going to be a problem. Hey, that early bye week is yet another week where those teammates can continue to gel and get on the same page early on. So again, trying to look for silver linings anywhere I can. But the whole point of the matter is that when an all-pro cornerback like Aqib Talib is saying what he's saying about our cornerbacks, it should definitely make Lions fans excited. It's definitely got me excited. But having said that, I'm going to end this episode here, and I just want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. Please subscribe. It really helps me out, and I'm ever so thankful for every subscription I can get my hands on. But I also want to encourage you all to do this. If you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you not had a chance to do so, again, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon as well, so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Again, the more that people turn that bell notification icon on, it will give you guys a notification as soon as I push something out, so that way you guys never miss it. Also want to encourage y'all, please share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere it can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel has a reach, the greater the channel can spread, and the more people we can bring into the channel for better discussions, better conversation, and so that way more people can watch the content. And with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed watching the content. I hope you all are having a great day. Hope you all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see y'all in the next episode.